So let's open up our database from where we left off. Go to my Smart AC1 and see we had a query that we created. Let's just take a quick look at that query where we're listing only 4 columns, actually 5 columns out of our owners table. I go to design view of a query and I see that I can display a table and then decide in the query designer which columns I care to select or view out of the owner's table. So the purpose of a query is to get useful information out of a table, and I view the result of that query. Here is that data. It pulled it out of the owner's table. Remember, I could just as easily have edited the owner's table, but there's a lot of fields there that maybe I don't want the data entry person to see, or it's data sheet view of everything, and I want to only get particular information out of it. We can make fancier queries that only display people from a particular area, so I can then create a mailing list. So queries allow you to pull information out in special ways. The form lets me view the information one record at a time in a very user-friendly way. If I had a picture of my customer there or the owner, it would show up as a picture, and I can browse with a navigator here back and forth in my table. Huge number of owners right now, 2 owners. I can browse through my table and view my owners. If I want a report of owners, remember how we can create a report? The quick way to create a report is on the Create tab, select what you want to report of, say those owners in just those columns. Click that item that has information to report, and I click Report, and it generates a report. If I want to have more control over what goes in the report, I can click the Create, use the Report Wizard, and it walks me through a little more details of how I want my report to look like. And we've done that. And one last thing, yes?
I was going to ask you might have asked like a broad question.
Sure.
So with like these websites that pull in your information, like say you put in your email,
Yep.
I'll be signed up for this thing or this newsletter or whatever.
Okay, so on a website, signing up for something.
Does that automatically put you in a database where like they have a system that plugs you into the system?
Yeah. But every site you go to, even if you don't sign in, they keep track of who's been there that they don't know who, but they know your IP address, that you came here on Thursday and you viewed this product. Even if you don't sign in. When you sign in, they have more information they can connect to you.
Okay. And so then, like, what do they make their own database?
Yeah, they likely have their own database, and there's multiple types of database. This is a very simple type. They use very efficient database. They may even pay someone to do the tracking for them, and then they say, tell us, that month's who's been visiting us from Dubuque, Iowa. And so there may be extra third parties that are helping to track all that. But everywhere you go, if you sign in, typically they have a database. They keep your name when you've registered, and all your activity they log. They find out what you're interested in, and they can then target ads towards you. And usually it's helpful to you because, hey, you'd rather see ads that you're interested in than those ads of completely things that you'd never be interested in. And the amazing thing is they can, think of YouTube videos or even TikTok. You watch a video, did you know they know where you are when you're viewing, so they can send you ads that will most likely be interesting to you. As an organization, you can actually go and create shorts, and you can go to a Google page that allows you to target ads within like 2 miles of your church, say a special event happening. You can say, for this next week, anyone viewing shorts, have our videos pop up as the shorts, those little ads of a thing happening in your local area, because they track your location. And you can, as a church, then you can go see who in our area is clicking. We get, there's 20% of them actually click and watch that video of an encouraging message or an invite to some event. Amazing things they can do with tons of capabilities of this of tracking, and typically it's stored in a database-like structure.
Hmm.
So VPN make it so they can't track it.
Yeah. If you're doing a VPN, they think you're in Chicago, wherever the VPN is accessing the internet from. And I found that out when I visited some friends in Omaha, and suddenly whenever I go to the Weather Channel, it always thinks I'm in Omaha. It's like, what's going on here? At some point, some cookie in my browser said I was in Omaha, and they access that and think I'm still in Omaha, and I get advertisements of their weather. So I have to switch it back to Dubuque. And I think if I finally cleared my cookies and history data, then it stopped thinking I was there. So yeah, VPNs anonymize you, and there's lots of other ways to browse, and if you don't want to be tracked for your known activity. Right now, everything that we do here, they don't know who you are. They just know you're coming from the Emmaus Bible College firewall. If we wanted to make that a little more hidden, we could have our firewall go through a VPN or anonymous access. And that's what missionaries do out on the field, that they will access the internet through channels that no one, through one major city that, hey, there's so much traffic they can't find out who it's from. Even if they don't know what you're doing, if they are if they're want to persecute you, they could at least know here's the sites you're visiting, even if they don't know what you're getting off that site. So if they know a site is, a Western political site, they'll suspect you of believing everything that's on that site. So, especially when you're in hostile countries, you have to be careful. They know they're tracking you even when you don't register on sites. So that's just the way the internet is. And there's a guy that sells a book. There is no privacy on the internet. Just get over it. There's no way around it. So now that we have these tables, we would like to have them all play nice together. We have the appointments, owners, patients, treatments, and veterinarians. We wanted to have our database know the connections between those tables, the relationships between these tables. And because this is Emmaus, we're very important topic is relationships. So database tools, relationships. Here we go. We're going to go to database tools, relationships. And what we're going to do is relate our tables to each other. So we click on the relationships design, click on tables, and we want to add all these tables to our relationship. So I can select or double click, add the appointments table. I'm going to put that in the center because this table kind of relates all our tables. See, it accesses an appointment ID, that's this table. It relates to the patient. It relates to the treatment number, to the veterinarian, and the owner. So this is kind of a central relationship between all our tables. Now let's add the owner's table. And I'm going to put it over here. The patient's table, I'm going to put it over here. What's that?
My table, like when I try to pull on it, it just makes it longer.
Yeah, if you drag the edge of it, it will make it longer. If you just are in the middle of it, it'll drag it. Yeah, if you grab the edge, it'll stretch it. If you want to see more, like this one, I'd like to see everything in it. I can stretch that out to see all the fields. The treatment cost, double click. I'm going to put that over here. And the veterinarians, and I'll put the veterinarians over here. Now, to establish the relationships between these tables now, first of all, let's look at the first one. In the appointments table, when I am referencing a patient, well, that better be a patient in the patients table. So I'm going to click and drag patient to the patient ID in the patients table, establishing that relationship. Now let's think of what's going on in this relationship. I'm telling the database, when I refer to patient ID from the appointments table, I'm referring to the patient in the patients table. And we don't ever want to refer to a patient that doesn't exist to make an appointment for a patient that doesn't exist. So we click Enforce Referential Integrity. What that means is when I'm referring to a patient, it's a patient that exists in my table, and make sure that I don't accidentally type a patient that doesn't exist. We have an appointment, the doctor's sitting in their office waiting, and that appointment never happens because we accidentally put in the wrong patient ID. The patient that was supposed to be there didn't get entered because someone typoed on the appointment table, and now our doctor is angry with us and we get fired. So we don't want that to happen, so we enforce referential integrity. Do the same thing with when we're referring to a veterinarian. We want to be sure we refer to a veterinarian that does exist. So I drag veterinarian, do veterinarian ID, and I enforce referential integrity, meaning that I can't refer to a veterinarian unless they exist in the veterinarian's table. And I create that relationship. The owner, well, the owner better exist if I'm referring to the owner that's going to bring the patient in. So I click owner and drag it to the owner's table, owner ID, and enforce referential integrity there. And now I click create. And because I have crossing lines, which I don't like, I'm going to adjust the position of the owners and veterinarian table because crossing lines are just confusing. One more relationship here. How is treatment cost related to anything? We don't show treatment cost here. Oh, but we are referring to our treatment number here. So I drag treatment number to treatment number, again saying I don't refer to a treatment if it doesn't exist. Yes, question.
It says the database engine could not lock table owners.
Oh, because your table owners is open. Make sure to close the owners table before you can create that relationship. You may have to close the relationships and then close the owners table and then come back to this. Yeah, Access doesn't like things to be open when you're trying to adjust the relationships. Now, do we have all our tables here? Veterinarians, owners, 5 tables, 5 here. Do you see a relationship that is still here we haven't established? There's one relationship that we still need to establish. I forget where I found it. Where is the... We're referring to a treatment number, veterinarian, owners, owner ID, patient. Oh, here. The patient has an owner. And we better make sure that we don't lose track and that there must be a relationship. It must relate to an owner that we have listed in our owners table. So here is an extra relationship that must be there. I drag patient, the owner ID and patient, drag him over to owner ID here, making sure that patients refer to existing owners, or we've got orphan patients, and we don't want orphaned animals in our veterinarian because we don't have all the room to keep them. And now because we have crossing lines, I can drag the owner table over to this side and drag the veterinarian or the treatment table over to this side and undo my crossing lines. And now I have less confusing lines between my relationships. So that's why those primary keys, remember we made a field a key in a table? This is why we do that, because the relationships between our tables then can be well designed, and someone coming to check our database, this is kind of a way of documenting how our database works, how the tables are related. And if you get into databases, this is what they call a relationship diagram. It's a very important part of designing a database to get it to work properly, to know how the tables are related to each other. And the whole reason for this, to all this fancy relationship and connections, is so we have our data very efficiently stored, and then we can access it and make changes to it and not have that horrible thing called redundancy happening to us. So now we have the relationships. I can close this, and now we're done with it, except we're going to do a little practice. So this table, this database is now done. I can close it, saving my changes. And now let's go practice making tables, because that's what this first part is about. And what we want to do is we want to make tables. We're going to build our own. We're going to build a few tables because we want to build, we're going to build Mississippi.com. We're going to beat out Amazon.com. We're building our own e-commerce store. Here we go. We're going to first build a table of the products we're going to sell. The table is our product table, and we're going to keep track of an ID for each product. We're going to be auto numbering that ID because I don't like to have to type in a number if I can let Access assign a number. We're going to assign a title to every product, and a description, and a price because we're going to be making tons of money. We want to be able to make sure we don't sell it if we don't have it available. We'll keep track of the quantity we have available. And there's going to be a supplier of each product when we need to reorder and resupply our inventory so we can sell more, make more big bucks, and compete with Bezos on his yacht. We'll get our own yacht, Emmaus University yacht. Keeping track as users view products, we'll keep track of how often that product is viewed. And that'll be something we'll let our web designers figure out how to update the view count every time they open that product or view that product. And of course, we want to know what was the last time it was sold. Should we dump it out of our inventory if it hasn't been sold for a long time? And then we have a second table out of many more than just these two tables, keeping track of the suppliers, because we're referring to a supplier and we need lots of information about them, and we're not storing it redundantly with every product. We are referring to the supplier by their supplier ID. And information about my supplier is, well, what is their title, the company name? What is the address, city, state of that company? And zip code, so I can send them bills and things. Travel to visit them. I can give them a phone call. I can send them an email. And I can visit their website of the supplier. And just so I know who it is I should talk to order more stuff from them, I have a contact there. And we do have a contract with them, so we're going to have various documents, invoices, and memos with them that we would like to keep track. We're going to keep documents associated with that supplier. So these are two tables that we're going to need to start with building our Mississippi.com. Going to be the next greatest e-commerce, making way more money than Amazon.com because it's just a better river. Okay, so that's the two tables. Now let's think about how we would design those tables. They will both have a primary key, which is the reference to each, is the key into each record in the product or supplier table. And take a detailed look at our product table. And while we're doing this, we'll build this product table. So let's go over to Access, and let's close everything we have. If you have anything open, make sure it's closed. Let's create a new table, and let's go right to Table Design, and we'll start creating our product table. That first field here is the product ID, and we're going to let Access give it a number. So how do I do that? I come over here, field name, product ID. I call this camel case. You don't use underscores, you just capitalize words in the middle. And the data type, instead of short text, I'm going to type the letter A. It finds the first thing being to the letter A is auto number. This is the key into this table. And it's automatically numbered. I do not enter it. Access controls this number. It is a number, so when I reference it from any other table, I must reference a number. What's my next field? Well, my next field would be the title of my product, and the data type for that, what do you think? Text. Can be a mixture of text and numbers, so we'll go with the default short text. So title, and I'll go with the default short text. I don't need any description for that. And then underneath that, I have a description. What data type should that be? Short text, limits it to 255 characters. I'm thinking I might want something longer than 255, so let's choose long text. And what's the next field? Well, it's the price. Well, the price, should that be short text? No, that needs to be something that refers to how much it's going to cost, so put price. And what data types do I have that would reflect cost? Yeah, currency. I could have chosen a number and have it make it be a decimal number, but since we have currency there, let's use that. That'll keep track, and it'll keep the right number of decimals and all the important things about currency. And we have quantity available. Quantity available, a long name for it. Quantity available. Now, we might want to make this a number. Yeah, number makes sense. I don't think we need large number. Let's go with number. But by default, numbers are integers. Now, if we're just selling number of shirts or boxes of items, that would be okay. But suppose I'm selling pounds of protein powder or pounds of sugar or some other item. Perhaps I want to make this more flexible, so I'll change it from long integer to single precision. That means single precision can be fractional. If we're doing scientific stuff, I can make it double precision, and we'll do 2 decimal places instead of automatic. So single precision can be fractional, and I'll enter that in the description. Can be fractional amount. So numbers, you might want to pay attention. If I'm only counting things by whole numbers, I would leave it at the default. But if I might be fractional, I'll choose a slightly different field size. Now the next field, what do we have? Quantity available, supplier ID. Ooh, this is an important one. Supplier ID. I'm spelling it the same way as it's going to be spelled in the supplier table. And because it's going to be a reference into the supplier table, and it's going to be auto numbered there, well, I better make sure it's a number here, or I can't establish that relationship. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to put a comment here, reference or link or relation or related to supplier table primary key. That's why the primary keys are so important in databases. It's how we make the connection between those tables. And I like to make it auto number, and if I do, that means I make sure this is a number too, because I have to tell it I am referencing a number in that other table. A couple more things left in our suppliers. Their view count, or in our product table, the view count and date last sold. So view count, I hit N and it bops to number, and I think integer is fine for a number. I don't need to make that a floating point or single precision. And what was the last one? Was date last viewed, right? Date last sold. Date last sold. I'm keeping track of the number of views. It might be useful to know the date last viewed, but I'll just do date last sold. And guess what data type that should be? You guessed it. And now I have the product table. If I wanted attachments of images and things, perhaps I could put that there. Oh, maybe I'll put images. I'll add one more, and I'll make that the data type of attachment. And now that I've added these fields, I'm going to go ahead and do Control S, save, and this is where it asks me then the name of my table. Let's call it product. I like to use the singular instead of plural, but that's more to taste of the design. Yes?
What was the specific precision?
Oh, I forgot to make that the key. I forgot to click primary key. The precision, I just made a 2 decimal precision on the quantity available. I changed the decimal places to 2. Single precision, 2 decimal places. I forgot to add a primary key. I should have told you when I click here, turn on the key. It reminds me I need the primary key when I want to save it. And I said, yeah, make the product ID the primary key. So product ID, primary key. Turn that off by clicking there. That toggles the primary key on and off. We do want it to be the primary key. I close it to make sure all the changes are saved. And now we're ready to design our next table. We're going to create, and again, table design. And here we're going to create our supplier table. And the first, I like to make the ID the first thing, although that's not required. Supplier ID, make it auto number, hit A, it adds auto number data type, and I'll list that as the key into this table. And before I forget, I will click the key now that I forgot to before, make that the primary key in my supplier table. Now, of course, just like the other one, let's go here with our product. We got our product all done. Now let's go to our supplier table. The data type for the supplier ID is a number. We're auto numbering it. The title is short text. And all of these address, city, state, zip, they think they can be short text, but perhaps we should have the state be limited to those 2 letters like we did in our example veterinarian. And the zip code, let's limit that to 10 characters to allow that dash in between the 5 and then the 4 extras. So short text with slight adjustment to our lengths on state and zip. But address, city, state, zip. Title, address, city, state, zip. So title, we'll go with the default short text. Address, we'll go with default short text. Sometimes in databases you'll see allow 2 lines for an address. Typically it's address 1 and address 2. We'll go with a single line for the address. And then we have city. We'll leave that short text default. State though, short text, but we'll adjust the field size to be 2. And we'll put a little note there. Only 2 letters allowed at most, because we're expecting the 2-letter abbreviation, state abbreviation. And we'll have our website coders figure out a way to make sure it's only valid states. We won't worry about that. We just know that we're only saving the 2-letter abbreviation. And the zip code, we'll go with short text there because we're going to have Canadian zip codes that have letters in them, but limited to 10 characters or less. So change that field size to 10. And then what else did we have for products? We had the phone. Well, we think of it as a number, but there's dashes and things in there. We'll make that short text. Email, we'll make that short text. Website, maybe short text, maybe is there a better option? Let's find out. So phone and email, we'll make short text. Default, email, go with the default. And now website. Short text seems like a good thing, but let's see what other options there might be. Notice there is an option for hyperlink. Let's find out how that works. I'm hoping that perhaps it checks that it's a valid link, or maybe it makes it a link that I can click on. What else do we have? We have contact and documents. Well, I forgot to capitalize. I want to be consistent in my capitalization. Contact, I'll capitalize it. We'll let that be short text, and this is the name of contact. And now we have the documents. Short text doesn't allow me to put multiple documents. What allows me to put multiple documents? Down there in the attachment. That's a wonderful feature. I can attach multiple documents to each record. And I'll put in little comments there like the contract with the supplier, any memos, or other important other legal docs, etc. Kind of a miscellaneous fill in, allow me to attach multiple things. And now when I close it, I want to make sure, yes, I have supplier ID as the key. When I close it, it will ask me, what do I want to name it? Saving my changes, and we're going to call this the supplier table. Now, right now, I have no products or suppliers, but I have the tables ready to fill in with some data. Let's go in, and before we start putting in data, let's establish that relationship between the product and supplier table. So let's go to our database tools. I'm going to close my tables just to make sure, because remember, with the tables open, it's not happy to mess with our tables in other ways. So I'm closing my tables. Let's go to our tools and establish that relationship between those two tables. I can come in there and add the products and supplier table, and I'm gonna drag them down completely separate from those other tables. They are not related to these tables at all. They are related to each other. I'm gonna drag supplier ID here to the supplier ID here, telling this database that when you enter a supplier ID, it better be referencing an existing supplier. Otherwise, it's going to say, sorry, you have a product that has no supplier, and I don't allow that. This is making sure we have good data in our databases. Because tables are the foundation of databases, we want to be sure we don't have bad data in there. So I create that relationship.
How did you get to the part with the
How did I get what?
relationships? If you're finishing up something else.
Database tools, relationships, just like we were before. So I went to database tools, relationships, double clicked on product and supplier, and then dragged supplier ID to supplier ID. This basically tells the database, whenever you enter a product and you're entering a supplier ID, it better be a supplier ID that exists in the supplier table. Now let's go try entering data and see how that works. Close that, saving my changes because I adjusted their position. Now first of all, let's enter the suppliers. Yes?
So I opened I forgot what it's called. All the relationships. It came up with the older relationships that we just did earlier.
Right. And then you add the tables on the right to show more tables. Okay. So let's just add a new supplier. Let's just call it Joe's Garden. 123 Oak Drive in Dubuque, Iowa. And notice it won't let me type any more than 2 characters. And the zip code 52001-1234, and it won't let you type any more than that. The phone, we'll skip the phone, email. Let's choose a website of joesgarden.com. Question?
I tried to put the supplier ID from the product to connect to the supplier ID of the supplier, but it said error. Mine says the same.
What is it saying?
Error. Mine says the
What did the message say?
The database engine should not block.
Because you have the table open. You want to close the table before you go to your relationships. It doesn't like to do the relationships while it is open. So that's the only problem. Then it should let you in.
And then what did you do after you did that?
All right, let me go back to there. Database tools, relationships, added the product and supplier table, double click to add the product, double click to add supplier,
So if you go to
and then drag supplier ID. If that line isn't there, you drag supplier ID from the product table to supplier ID of the supplier table, enforce referential integrity, and then you get the line. Good? Okay. And then I close it. And we can always come back here and mess with these relationships and delete lines, but it's always wants you to have the table closed while you're doing that. Now we've added a supplier, and notice how when it's a hyperlink, it makes it a link. If I click on it, it tries to take me to that link, and we'll find out whether that is actually is an existing website. And it looks like it isn't. And I'm not sure what's going on with my browser. My browser is supposed to be coming up to take me to that website. And maybe there isn't a Joe's Garden. You got to be careful with links sometimes. And it locked up access. Let's see, is it waiting to go somewhere? I have the little spinning clock. It's not. There's my accident. I clicked on the link and it's hanging up on me. So I guess links can be dangerous in access, and it's locked up access on me. Oh, it seems to be. Is there a dialogue popped up somewhere? I don't see it. It's supposed to be taking me to Joe, it's supposed to be trying to finally it's trying to take me to joesgardens.com, and we'll see if that's a real website. I didn't think it would lock up access while it's going to try to bring up that website. And I'll go back here, and now I can continue. And I could skip some fields, but let's go to that. Now let's go to the product table. Notice there's supplier 1 is the only valid supplier, right?
Mr. Mann?
Yeah.
I accidentally clicked on it. Is there a way to stop it going to that link so that it doesn't freezing? Because mine is just doing the spinning.
No, I don't think there's a way, unless you can try Control C or something. So don't click on that link right now. Apparently there's, it's not, it didn't take it, it just popped up immediately last time I did it. But we can still enter that information, and now I can close the supplier table. Now let's go to the product table and make up a product.
It is a website.
Oh, it is a valid website? Hope it's not too sketchy.
Look at this.
Okay, so the title, we'll say we have a product. Let's say we're going to have a product asparagus. And it's delicious. And we're going to charge $20 for this very delicious asparagus. And the quantity we have is 20.5 pounds of it. Now, we have a supplier ID of 0 right now. That apparently is the default value. Let's suppose that that's not really, we know that 0 doesn't exist. Let's see if it allows that to remain there. View count, we have 0. And let's see, we don't have to add anything else. How about date last sold? We'll just make up a date. We'll click on the little date picker. And let's see if it'll save that or if allow us to leave that row. Uh-oh, this is the relationship. He's not allowing us to put 0 in the supplier ID because of that relationship we established. I click OK and add a existing supplier ID. Now when I click off of that row, now I see it's happy. So you get that scary message from Access if you have an invalid supplier ID, because we have said that relationship is enforcing referential integrity, meaning you can't put bad data into my table. And we want to do that as much as we can to keep bad data from getting into our table now that we have started our Mississippi.com website. So that was just a little practice, having you build tables, saving my table because I adjusted my column. Now you have not only the Access Project 1 done, but did a little practice with product and suppliers. Question?
Yeah. So basically, in the quantity available, like I didn't put to make it like decimals.
Oh, if you want to change that, you just go to View, Design View, and you can adjust the quantity available number, change it to single and 2 decimal places, and then it will let you put a fractional number there. Yes. And this is all we're doing for this project. I just added these extra tables just to give you some practice building a table, because that's what this was mainly about, building your foundation of databases. Yes.
Under supplier table, did you put anything for phone, email, or contact?
Oh, no, I think I left that blank. You're welcome to put in a fake email if you like, joe@joesgarden.com. Yeah.
My thing for asparagus, the product ID says 2.
Then make sure, your product ID is fine. That's Access changing that for us. It won't let you change it, so but that tells me you added one and deleted it. It just keeps track of the next thing. It's always going to be a new number. That's what auto number does.
I also tried to switch the supplier table, like back to supplier, because on it says supplier, but on mine it says supplier table because I accidentally typed it.
Oh, right. You can close it and then right-click rename it if you want to give the correct name. But it has to be closed or it won't let you rename it. So at this point, we're done with this Access 1 project. These 2 tables were just to give you practice at building tables, because the next one we're going to be spending most of the time in queries. This little table practice, that relationship thing, that's a very important part of databases, making sure your data is pure and correctly entered. If you don't have that, you could have orphan pets that get lost, products that don't have suppliers. That's why we have these design rules between the tables. Yes, another question?